Hi, everyone. This is Kevin Van Trump. I just wanted to update our subscriber base. We're probably not going to be able to have our annual event, FarmCon, here in Kansas City anytime soon. We usually have it sometime between December and January. It looks like Kansas City's not going to allow that to take place with 1,000 people under one roof this year, anyway. I'm hoping that maybe as we move forward into the spring, uh, things will change. Maybe even into the late winter, they will allow that if we see how things play out with the vaccine and things of that nature. Also, some of our partners and the people that we put the show on with, they're not certain they could send key employees and key parts of their executive team to a meeting that had that many people either. So, what we wanted to do in the interim between now and the event, which we hope, like I said, we can just postpone a little bit rather than in January, we postpone it to maybe the spring or before planting, hopefully. Um, we wanted to bring along some conversations, some various conversations with people that are, I believe, important and informed players in the ag sector and in the ag space. Talk a little about our own personal investments, talk about what we see happening in agriculture and what we see happening with the current prices and where we're headed for the future. So I don't want to take up much more of your time. I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone's support. We hope to have the FarmCon event back live, like I said, into the first half of 2021. I'll keep everyone updated. And in the meantime, just kind of enjoy these conversations. It's just gathering of some of my friends and people I respect and have taught me a lot in the industry on some Zoom calls and just kind of mid conversation. So hope you enjoy it. Have a good one. Thanks. Bye. I was on a call late last week, some hedge fund guys out of New York, when they were telling me that the hospital people in New Jersey and New York, the higher ups that they talk with, and they said the virus mutated maybe 2.5 months ago from their records, 2 months ago, and that they think it's a lot more contagious now, but not near as lethal. And I take that for what it's worth. I don't know what the hell that
Well,
would.
and I will tell you that's the other side of it. And I can only speak for businesses in Western Kansas and down in the part of the Dallas area. Is probably 75% of the people that we have test positive are asymptomatic. They don't. Oh, maybe they feel a little lousy for one day, but they're really not sick. So I would agree with you that maybe the potency of it is being reduced, but the contagiousness of it must be going up because we've taken a lot of precautions to make sure we could keep it out of our workspace, and to have 7 cases. I mean, it's like, where in the hell did that shit come from? So from that perspective, so it will be interesting. Um, I won't say who, but there is one ethanol plant that had to shut down. They had so many people that were quarantined that they're actually had to stop production for a while. So,
What has anybody on the call had it?
as
Any,
what?
has anyone had it on the call right now? Has anybody had?
I haven't. No,
No.
no. I got a bunch of other shit, but no, I don't have that.
You know, Michelle and I, we questioned Andy because so we were on that call with those people from New York, and they were telling me that the state of Florida now there's some big, I don't know, to do with the health organization. I guess they have evidence that there were 4 or 5 different strands circulating down in Florida at the beginning of the year, and they had some deaths that they can pinpoint to. And they're like, same within New York. And Michelle and I were in New York and the Super Bowl for like weeks, remember? And she came back, and when we got back from the Super Bowl, she was sick as hell and had to get an inhaler. And that inhaler didn't work, and then had to get like some super special inhaler. And we were like, what the hell? And Todd got sick as hell in our whole office. I don't know. Maybe we got something down.
See, I didn't go to the Super Bowl, but I was down there
Yeah.
during the Super Bowl because I had other business meetings, and we stayed at some of the hotels where some of the guests were there. And when I came back, I got sick, and I thought it was just the flu or a bad head cold for about 6 or 7 days.
Right.
And looking back on it, I'm wondering if maybe I had it then. I don't know. I've tried to philosophically, we've tried to run our businesses and just say, hey, business as usual. The problem that I'm seeing out there, and I don't know what you guys are seeing, is that as this continues to go on, we had an actual death in Southwest Kansas attributed to it. Now, the guy was 60 years old, and he was way out of shape, but he legitimately died from complications. The other side of it, and I know I've talked with Andy about this, because of the way the incentives are out there. I had one lady that I know, because I'm on the hospital board. Her death was caused by going through a windshield at 60 miles an hour. That'll do it.
Yeah.
But they found that during the autopsy that she had the virus, so they recoded her death as the virus. Well, hell, it had nothing to do with the virus. It had to be that semi that she hit. That's what killed her. But so you never know. But I am picking up, and down in our Dallas office, did really starting to shut things there. Out in Utah, that continues to go up. I don't know. Hopefully the thing will stabilize there. So I don't know. Like
your guys' hotels and the pizza things, that's got to just be.
Well, and we've been fortunate on the pizza thing so far, especially considering college is not in session. I mean, they're in session, but it's all virtual. But the hotel, oh hell, yeah. I mean, that's child abuse. That's child abuse. That's all I say there. I've made some dumb decisions in my life, and I guess it's being taped. But for the record, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done. So I'll go publicly on record for that.
Hey, Tom, it's only fair if the rest of them share theirs too now, since you did that.
Too many to talk about. Greg, what'd you see? Greg, hey, you guys. Greg rides tell him how far you ride your motorcycle, Greg. Greg's got like a Euro type bike. What is it, Greg?
Yeah, I've got a BMW that I like riding around, spending time on, and it's the style is now very popular. It's called an adventure bike. So
I was about to ask, is it an adventure bike or is it a touring bike?
Yeah, it's an adventure bike.
Do you have like full streets on it, or do you have like 70-30 splits, or what do you got on it?
No, right now it's probably a 90-10.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not in the dirt much other than camping.
Oh, that's super fun, man.
Yeah, it's so we've got grain elevators all over the countryside, and actually last weekend, maybe a week ago from today, I left for my first tour of our grain elevator facility since COVID hit. So I've not been traveling since March for work, and felt really good to be out there because I was in the Delta, mid-Delta, and man, combines are rolling, dust was flying. It was just makes you feel good to be in agriculture at that time. So it's awesome. But I was on the motorcycle, and so had a really good trip. Kevin, other than that, I went up to Indiana to see my dad in July, and kind of just a quick trip. But I like the long rides. So, I might go 800 to 900 miles a day.
Wow.
And, still working. I really don't have time just to go travel around the country. And my wife is very forgiving to let me go, but I don't think she wants me to be gone for months.
Didn't you tell me there's a group of you guys that would like take back roads all the way, like massively long distances from down there up through all the way across? Yeah. That's
Yeah, so as much as you can. So I went from, where was I? Central Missouri, Steelville, Missouri, and came home Saturday, Sunday, and never hit a 4-lane highway.
Damn.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
Have you been up to Sturgis before, Greg?
no, I've not done that. That's traditionally more of a Harley crowd.
Yeah.
But I've been very intrigued at that whole thing. So I'll probably make it up one time.
We were supposed to go up this year, Andy and I, and we went. I went for the 75th year anniversary with my wife, and it was a good time. Yeah, we were going to go up this year, but it's a lot
And
of
did
fun.
you go right during the busy week up there?
Yeah, that's not that much fun, I don't think. But
Yeah.
our whole family's had Harleys. We've had them our whole lives. My dad, grandpa, and so
Yeah.
we've ridden a lot. But Jordan's got a couple of bikes like you were talking, Greg, and on road. Yeah, they've become wildly popular lately. So.
Yeah, they really have. In fact, you go into BMW showrooms and it's hard to find models. You know, dealers might have 2 or 3 on the floor, and so it's kind of like RVs and boats. You know, they're moving.
Yeah. So down there with your guys' office, Greg, are you guys just testing people as you bring them back, or you don't have to, or you just kind of bringing them back at will? And
Yeah, we started testing. You know, like taking temperatures and things like that, and it just. You know, we don't have a really big corporate structure. So it was just really hard to get people to comply and do that. So now it's more, you know, monitor yourself, who you've been around, talking to a lot of people. And you're starting to see people be, I'd say, really conscientious. So I'll go down on the trade floor and there might be 3 or 4 people wearing masks. So, hey, you know, are you feeling sick? Like, go home. And they're like, no, you know, my wife's a nurse. And I just think it's the best thing to do for the office if I'm going to come back, to make sure. So that I think people being conscientious gives us a level of, I guess, comfort that they're making good decisions. But Tom, probably like you, there have probably been 15 people here locally that have had COVID now in the last 6 weeks. So more that I've known between that period when it started in March. And I don't know if it's anything new or if it's just hitting people I know. We had a grain elevator at Osceola, Arkansas, that I was nervous they were going to have to shut down in harvest because people were testing positive, one lady in the hospital. And, you know, when this thing came on in March, you're kind of thinking it's the cities and St. Louis and New Orleans, New York, of course. And I never thought tiny rural towns of 10,000 people would be the ones that could have the bigger problem. So I'd say we're quite alert, making sure our hourly people are staying apart. And it's hard because you don't let them use the break room. But when you walk by, like on my tour, there'll be 5 guys in there. And you're like, what? Come on, what? Oh, we didn't know you were coming. No. That's not the right answer. The right answer is we forgot or something, not we didn't know you were coming.
You know, Greg, one of the issues we've had, because we do have a 8-foot mandatory social distancing. We've moved desks around. And again, we take temperatures every day. And I thought we had done a great job of keeping it out. But what happens is you'll have somebody that'll have a problem with a scale ticket. And the next thing I know, there's 6 of them surrounding the screen at a single desk trying to work through it. And I'm like, guys, that was the whole premise strategy behind this, was not to do that. And they just subconsciously can't. I'm like you. They do a good job of staying 8 feet apart unless there's a problem. And then they all conjugate. So,
So we have plexiglass around the desks in the office, and you know, so people aren't breathing on each other. If we can't keep them 8 feet apart, then we got plexiglass. And what you find is when the trade floor gets a little bit loud, they stand up, get together so they can talk over the plexiglass. You know, we're just people, right? You forget and you're doing what you want to do.
And Andy, you were just out in Vegas not that long ago. You said it was no fun, really. Just like, or a lot of the things were different, huh?
Oh yeah, it was. I'm not going back until they open up, because I would say 70% of the restaurants are closed. You could shoot a cannon down the strip and then probably not hit anything. The casinos, when you gamble, you have to have your mask on the entire time. If you want to take a sip of water or a drink or something, you can do that, but you have about 10 seconds before you start getting people start yelling at you, and there are barriers and the screens that Greg was describing, but it's not the same experience. The nightclubs are closed, the restaurants aren't. A couple of them are open, and it's not Vegas, and so yeah, it was okay, but it was an eerie feeling, and I'm very concerned about how they come back, and they're going to be bleeding for a while. I don't see any way around it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah. How is it down there in Cabo? Not that bad.
Cabo, no, it's not. They're a little more relaxed in that regard. They take your temperature whenever you go in somewhere, but and you put a mask on for 10 steps until you get to your table, and then you take it off, and it seems to be much less. You don't feel it as much. You don't feel the overarching concern down here. But the resorts are, I think they're allowed 40% occupancy now, and so it's not crowded by any sense of the word. Fish aren't noticing it, so the fishing's been pretty good, and the golfing. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Did you have to quarantine down there when you went down there, Andy?
No quarantine. No quarantine.
How about when you come back?
Yeah,
Adam is quarantining down in the Caymans. He can't even leave his condo for 14 days.
Yeah, Adam, show Willis your bracelet they slapped on you. He's got to be on like house arrest, Tom, for 14 days off the plane.
Yeah, so they give you a GPS bracelet that links into a government cell phone they give you that says "I'm safe," and they ping you, and you have to like check in. You got to hit that green button and check in every so often. They'll call, they'll randomly stop by to check on you, make sure nobody's sick, and that you're not breaking any of the rules.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just got milk and bacon and eggs delivered on the front porch during this call.
Wow. So interesting, crazy times for sure. So let's pivot. Let's talk. We want to talk politics. Let's get fired up early.
Hey, Kev, do you want to do a countdown to start, so that we've got a start point for the recording?
No, that was good. We'll run all that was right there. I mean, that was good stuff. I mean, people want to hear about how to bring their businesses back, I think. So.
Okay, cool. Well,
Jordan can edit some of it, at the very beginning. But yeah. What do you guys think on the what are we thinking? Political.
I spent today's Wednesday. I spent Tuesday or Monday evening with Kevin McCarthy. He actually came down here and had a chance to visit with him for 2 hours. And he put it appropriately, a lot of questions, but he said, in his opinion, if this election is about COVID, Trump and Republicans that have tied their boat to him probably get their butt kicked. He said, if it's about anything else, Trump probably wins. And I mean, that was, if I boiled down 2 hours worth of conversation with him, that was what he said. Controlling the Senate. Again, if you have a good turnout and people vote ticket, I don't want to say I don't want to give up my party affiliation. Not that anybody that knows doesn't know what I am, but the Republicans will hold. If they don't, we could. There's, we could. A little worried about the race in Arizona. Actually, I'm a lot worried about. I think Maine And again, and I am a Republican, I guess I'll disclose that. I think Maine's in big danger. I think Maine probably flips this year. From that perspective. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. But that was Kevin's comment to me. If I summed it down, was it's just all comes about. If this is a vote on COVID, it's not a good day for the Republicans. If it's a vote about anything else, anyway, any other measurements you want to make, any measurements you want to take, he feels like Trump prevails, and we not only does Trump prevail, but we hold the Senate.
What are
I
you
can
hearing?
start there.
Yeah. Greg, what are you hearing down there? Anything different? Or?
You know, down here and the states that I traveled in, they're pretty much all Trump states. Riding around on the motorcycle, there's Trump flags everywhere. So Louisiana, you know, New Orleans will be more a Biden area. So I think it's going to be how much are people going to come out of the woodwork and vote, you know, for each side. You know, how many new voters does Biden get in? So I think I would agree with Tom, you know, and on the COVID thing, if people would say, you know, not really sure Biden would have done any better, then maybe he can come through. You know, for me though, I think, you know, with the electoral votes, my big concern is, you know, like Pennsylvania, Michigan, that were sort of surprises, like, wow, those states kind of went for Trump. Maybe Ohio, will they do that again? You know, so I'm a little concerned about that. But probably my biggest question is, you know, with all these more social movements, you know, does the younger people, you know, the millennials get energized in this? You know, so I'm hearing from a lot of younger people, you know, where they're, and I don't know what young is, right? Maybe 35 and down, but they're like, you know, these people really have some legitimate complaints, and we need to do something about it. You know, we need to legislate change, and I don't know how you legislate morality, right? But that's starting to give me some concern. We got local town here, Covington, Louisiana. It's probably half white, half African American community. And there have been some demonstrations down there but they're all young white people. And so I think that could be the thing this year, Kevin, that's going to be a surprise, where many of those people did not vote in the last election. You know, people were fed up with government. They went for Trump. You know, so what if there's a big influx of those people in Pennsylvania, Ohio, you know, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Detroit?
You know, that's my opinion. That's why last time when I bet money and won on Trump, I was betting that people were going to come out and vote against Hillary Clinton. And I think people did come out and vote against Hillary Clinton. You know, and the people that, some of the other people just didn't vote, that would normally vote Democrat. They just didn't want to vote, and they just didn't vote. I think this time around, you got a strong number of people that are going to vote against Trump. I mean, period. I hear it all over the place. And whether it's the younger millennials, that may be correct, but they're showing up to vote against Trump. It has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with anything. I just think they're showing up to vote against him and what they perceive as, you know, rude or curt comments. I don't know. We deal with the same thing in agriculture, aren't we? Socially sustainable agriculture. Well, hell, here we are. Socially sustainable politics is going to be the next thing.
Yeah.
And I ask everyone, it's like, you know, if you want the country ran as, I think this is the big question. Do you run the country as a business, or do you run the country as something that's socially correct, you know, and socially right? And, you know, to me, if you want to run it as a businessman, Trump's your guy, and we're the world's #1 economy, and it seems like it is a business, and it makes sense. Socially correct, yeah, he's probably not the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably not what people want on that. And we battle the same thing in farming. You know, it seems like all the calls we're on anymore. It's just, is your farm socially sustainable? Is this going to be right in the eyes of the millennials, the younger kids? Are we doing what's right for the, and I'm with you. Greg, I feel the same movement around when you talk to a lot of the people. Now, I also I'm with you, all through rural America. I mean, Trump has a cult following. I mean, it's just signs and flags and, and they love it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they love it because he kind of slaps around that other theory, that be nice, and they're like, oh, hell with being nice. Let's do what's right. And
That's right.
but I'm with you.
I think there's another factor in here, Kevin.
Yeah.
The people that I talk to that are Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay. That and there's still the ability to have a little bit of conversations without it digressing. The one thing that scares them. Now, granted, this isn't the hard left, but it's not the hard left that's going to decide this election.
No.
It's not. And the one thing that scares them is when they say we are 6 months, a year away from Harris being president. And there's very few people that I talk to. And again, I'm not saying I'm running around in the same circles that you guys do, so it's broader. But there's a prevailing attitude that Biden's it's not a one-term president. He's a one-year president or somewhere in there. And there are a lot of people that do not feel comfortable with a President Harris. And I'm talking on the left, and the moderate left. What that role that plays as they get to know her more, how she's perceived in these Supreme Court nominations when they come. Again, maybe talking my position, but I'm going to. The idea that you can't get out of Trump or Harris, whether they would stack the Supreme Court, those are issues you can't measure in polls. You can't measure in polls. And while I agree with you that I think there is a fever amongst the millennials or Gen X or whatever they call themselves now, to want to get rid of, they don't like the man. And if you ask them why they don't like him, they can't give you a damn reason. Hell, if they could articulate a reason why they don't like him, I'd feel a little bit about it, but they just don't. I think there is a movement out there in very moderates to say, hey, do we see Harris as a president? And the other thing, and maybe the mail-in ballots negate this some, but with a lot of these colleges closed down, that ability to get together and have the big, rally and we're all going to march down and vote today, that's gone because they're not on campus. And so I look at that and I say, yeah, there's a lot of energy at these demonstrations, but are they really going to show up at the poll? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe Trump gets his ass kicked. But when I bring up that Harris question, hey, do you see Harris as a president? And I've asked a lot with him, and I get looks like, no, we really don't. So when they get in that booth to get ready to pull that thing, if it was just strictly Biden that was on the ballot, but it is not. And I'd be curious what you guys think, but I don't think Biden's going to make it a full term. I really don't. And there's a lot of people that share that opinion on the other side. I'd be real curious to see how that all turns out. And don't just downplay this Supreme Court nomination, because there are going to be a lot of emotions around that, especially if people aren't willing to explain what their position is there. They can the ignorance that some of our politicians have in terms of the process of amendments and things like this flabbergasts me. They know what the hell they're talking about, but I just offer that out as a contrarian opinion. With
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, I don't know. I think too, the American people, I think I think they like change, and I think they're open to ripping people from the top. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be hard pressed to see Trump win again. And I know there's flags everywhere and there's signs everywhere, and we don't see many Biden signs, but.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just offering a counterpoint of view.
Oh no, I agree. I hear what you're saying.
I would say, Kevin, that, if a recent poll, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? 56% of the people say they are. So the economy, he wins. There's no doubt he screwed the pooch in the debate, and that turned a lot of heads. And not having the second debate, I think, is costly. But how much principle do you stand on when you're theoretically trailing in the polls? But I agree with Tom. I mean, I do think that, Biden is no one really believes he's going to see a full term through, and that she is the de facto president. The country, if they really were to ask themselves honestly, do you want to pack the courts? Do you want to add 2 more states and stack the cards? Do you want to see taxes go up? Do you want to see regulation go up? Do you want to see the enactment of some of these, what I would call crazy socialist programs, agendas, Green New Deal, et cetera, et cetera? I just don't think the country's ready for that. I think it's an unforeseen consequence. Is there such hatred in the air for Trump? Perhaps there is. That we don't get, that people just vote against him, but not realize why they're voting against him and what the unforeseen consequences of that action is. Mm-hmm. That's what concerns me as much as anything. But you're right. At the end of the day, the Durham report is noticeably absent. You certainly are. He's not just fighting. It's not just him against the Dems. It's him against the Dems and the the news sources. I mean, this is not there's no, the bias is beyond belief. The polarization of this country is beyond belief. And boy, I'll tell you, I am very concerned about what will happen. And I think that the linchpin to it all, could we live without Trump? Sure. Can we live without Trump and without the Senate? I think that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And not necessarily tomorrow or the next day, but it's all about the Senate. And yeah, I agree with you, Tom. Collins is in trouble. Maybe even Lindsey Graham is in trouble. There's some inflection points out there. Colorado. So yeah, we'll see.
I just think though a lot of the problem, or a lot of our biases, we all circulate and hang around the same type of people. When I had my show at last time FarmCon, I didn't say this to anyone. Everyone's like, love the show. We had one comment. So it's like, yeah, that's interesting. Just a bunch of rich white guys, Kevin's rich white guy friends up there. And I laughed at first and just blew it off. I'm like, yeah. But I've thought about it a lot lately. And, they might be, but they're not lying. I mean, this is all the calls we have. Look what we have here. Mm-hmm. It's generally a bunch of rich white guys. And we all, as Andy said, we all talk and I don't know. I just sit there and I think with the masses, and if you ask them, am I in a better position now than I was 4 years? Probably not. I mean, in their eyes, all my friends in rural America that I'm just saying are poor, and a lot of my people I knew that are in poor neighborhoods in the city, they don't give a shit about politics, and they're certainly not in any better position than they were 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years. They're in the same shitty position is what they view it as. And they don't want to be treated like that. That's their view of what they're saying. They don't want to be treated how they feel Trump talks down to them or makes some of the snide comment. They don't care about politics. They don't care about Kamala. They just don't want to be treated that way because they feel they're living in a shitty, nothing's that great anyway in their eyes. And I'm just saying, we sometimes, I think, lose a lot of perspective of that because we got great families. We're out on farms. We're in rural America where we see things in a different view different light. And like Tom says, I mean, I feel like if all those people actually show up to vote, we probably get smoked on the Republican side.
And I agree with what Andy said. For my dollars investing in politics right now, I'm going all in on the Senate. Now, Cory Gardner, I like the guy. I don't think he's going to win. But there are some races out there that I think we could still control 51 or hell, even, get to the 51. And that's where I'm putting my investment, because at the end of the day, who knows what'll happen. I agree with you. There's a lot of vitriol against Trump. To Andy's point, and it's the thing that frustrates me when and you may have just hit on it. You may have just hit on it. When I ask people, what is it you don't like about him? They can't articulate a logical thought other than I don't like him.
Right.
Well, okay, but tell me what he's done. Why don't you like him?
The only thing I've heard on that, Tom, is people say, I just wish he'd shut up.
Yeah.
That's what that's about. The only thing that I've heard people articulate about what they don't like.
And there are days I feel that way too.
Yes.
But to me, it's all about the Senate. It is 100% about the Senate.
So what happens if it's a blue wave? Let's say they sweep. What happens in our world, ag world, with say ethanol, or what changes happen at CGB, or anything significant to the farmer? What do we think? Anything?
Well, you guys are smarter than I am, and I hate to say this, but if you look back, typically agriculture does better under Democratic administrations than they do Republicans. If you look back in entirety.
I agree. And we've had those conversations.
From a renewables perspective, that's a damn good question, and it's one I spent a lot of time asking myself. What happens with the sustainability piece, and that seems to be more and more important. One of the businesses that we're starting with our company is the disinfectant, because for COVID reason, some of our product to make disinfectant for cleaning things. And the company's guys that we're doing business with, you know what? Their second question is, how sustainable is this? Can we trace this back to the farm? And I'm like, well, yeah, we can, but we hit this ingredient, we make this spec. That they're interested in that, but this sustainability, this environmental friendly, I'm telling you, this thing is picking up, and it's going to impact agriculture. And don't ask me specifically, you guys would probably have better ideas on it, but I think it impacts it. Maybe there's an opportunity for some profit to be made. If you're a no-till or a minimal till producer, but it is going to have an impact, I believe, if you have a Biden win. The wild card is Trump. And I'm speaking selfishly here. I don't think Trump gives two flying clouds. He'll tell you he does about ethanol, but he does about the farmer. He does significantly care about the farmer. He gets a second term. What do those dynamics look like? And I can't tell you. I don't know. Yeah. He told me himself once. He says, I have spent more time refereeing fights between the mandated parties in the RFS and agriculture than I have with the Taliban. That's a quote. He said, I spent more time trying to mediate between agriculture and the RFS than I have the Taliban. So he has grown really wary of it. He feels like he's done a lot for agriculture with the money that he's pumped out the last year and a half. And it will be very interesting to see, and I don't have the answer
philosophically, we know Wheeler is not really pro anything renewable. It would be very interesting to see what happens if he wins in that range. But
So Greg, you
Not too
guys at Greg, you guys at CGB have kind of brought on some organics, and you're heading that sustainable direction as well, right? With seeing things.
Yeah. My take on that is, so we've been doing non-GMO shipping to Japan for 30 years. Grains that have not been treated with post-harvest chemicals, there's a demand for that. And for probably 20 of those years, I always thought it was the most ridiculous thing that I saw. People paying a premium for non-GMO corn. It's just corn, right? It's safe. But the demand never changed. Now, as it got more expensive during the drought years, they found different ways to navigate around needing to use so much. Like a lot of non-GMO corn was just used for glue, right? Cornstarch. Well, they've figured ways away from that. So I think my point is, then the more I look at American diets, the more I look at the grocery aisles, even in Walmart has an organic section. We talked about the poor people, Kevin. I'll see mothers buying organic eggs with food stamps. And it's like, that makes no sense to me. So when I look at the American farmer, and most of, I think, the organic corn, soybeans used in the United States is imported, so it's coming from Argentina, Ukraine, Romania, Turkey, and we wonder, is it really organic? There was a cargo that came in on the East Coast that was tested for GMO content, and guess what? It was GMO in. So, but there's not a real test other than GMO. So where I want to go with CGB is, if we're going to be paying these large premiums to foreign countries or to foreign farmers, why shouldn't we pay that to the U.S. farmer? If the price of corn is 2.5 times for organic what it is regular corn, I think those economics work. Economics I've seen on the farm, somewhere between $800 and $900 per acre. A farmer can make that work. So that's my idea. Also, the volume's not huge. So there's a lot of grain assets, elevators in rural America that are underutilized. Those are perfect little assets for an organic type program. So yeah, we're moving that way. I want to see us or the American farmer replace these foreign imports. Got no problem with foreigners growing corn, right? They're just as good a farmer as our American guys are, but let's take care of America. I like that. On the sustainability piece, I'm just like you guys. I see it coming. Everybody talks about it. My kids talk about it. There's organic stuff in my kids' refrigerators that drives me crazy. There's organic stuff in my own refrigerator that drives me crazy, right? So it's not going away, but the sustainability, what bothers me is, and I agree with you, Tom, I think with a more, with a Democratic leader, especially Kamala Harris, the regulation that's going to come on companies like ours or the farm. I mean, what if they regulate how much nitrogen you can put on corn? I mean, think about that. All this local movement about, big agriculture is bad and corporate farms are bad. It's a narrative that's just wrong, and it bothers me. And I don't know of an industry that's more sustainable than farming. You got multi-generational landowners, right? You take care of your land so they're not wasting money. Farmers are very economic. It's very sustainable. Our total chemical and fertilizer use is down from what it was some 40 years ago. So it's a great story. No one tells about it. Sustainability, the problem also is it's not defined, right? What is sustainability? Well, we want someone to be in business so we don't run out of food, right? We want to be able to use the land forever. It's very sustainable, but the NGOs are winning They're winning. They're making America, they're making Congress, they're making the Senate be fearful that big agriculture is bad. And it really scares me. I mean, and no one ever says, well, what if the government would put limits on nitrogen usage? Drop the corn yield from, what, a 170-ish average to 130? What's that going to do to the price of food?
Yeah. I agree. When I travel around to people that don't really know or aren't well rooted in agriculture, they all say the same thing. Yeah, all those big corporate farmers, we got to get rid of those big corporate farms. I'm like, who is that? Who are you talking about? Well, we're talking about, Tom, all my friends. And it's like, no, these people have been on the ground in their land for years, hundreds of years. They're great stewards of their land. They love it. They take care of it. They will love nothing more than to pass it on to their kids. They're not out there trying to destroy their ground that they're going to leave to their children. It's like, no, this doesn't even make sense. But it's a tough one to battle. So, crazy. Don't you hear the same, Tom, out here, your neck of the woods?
Oh, yeah. In fact, there was a rumor going around the other day. I have not confirmed it, that Harris had said as part of her platform, she wanted to limit the amount of beef and meat. I guess I won't limit it to just beef that people could consume in their diet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had seen that, where she made that comment. And what?
I had not seen it.
I'll see if I can find it. But yeah.
One of the girls that works for me, Tom, is out in California. She lives in LA, and she's left. I mean, she's a Democrat, but she said, she was really couldn't believe the number of friends. She's had people ask her, so you're from Missouri and Kansas. That's just all desert out there, right? They don't even know. I'm telling you, a lot of them are just like, the flyover states. That's no joke. I mean, I don't think, like Greg's saying, I think a really bad picture has been painted about farming and this so-called corporate farming and not sustainable. And it's going to be, I don't see how we get over it though. I mean, it seems like the media is going to continue to drive that dagger with climate change, clean energy, the fake meats.
They can, to the point that food cost. What is of the average consumer's paycheck? What's 10, 12%?
I think it's, at least.
Or 15% on food?
I think around 10%. It's very low.
10%. That gets up to 15, 20%. That's disposable income that's going to keep the same standard of living that they have in terms of their diets. Eventually, people will kick back on it. I would tell you not to revert back to politics, but if there is a big blue wave this year, in 2 years, I believe there'll be a big red wave, because people will say, wait a minute, this is not what you promised us. It sounds great. But you go to buy a 10-pound pound of potatoes, and right now I think you can buy them for what, $2 to $2.50 in the store, and you're paying $10 because potatoes are infamously using a lot of chemicals to raise them, and they can't use those chemicals. You're paying $10 or $12 for a 10-pound. People will notice it, and I think Kevin, that's what stops it. People vote with their paycheck. Once that's done.
I worry though, like Andy and I say, and I'm hoping I'm not putting words in Andy's mouth, but as this wealth divide gets bigger and bigger, and the haves versus the have-nots becomes larger and larger, well, hell, I think they're just going to tax me more and tax you more, and that's how they're going to subsidize the higher cost and give it to the other side. I mean, I don't see, as this divide gets more and more, it feels like there's just going to be more and more people want to vote in their own subsidies and vote in their own democratic wave. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy.
I can't argue that.
It's tricky. It's like, wow. I mean, I don't know. So I told you I had someone ask me one day, it's like, do you max out your 401k and do you do this? You do? Yeah, I do. And they're like, well, do you believe your taxes are going to be higher in the future or lower in the future? And I'm like, well, I think they're going to be higher. They're like, well, why are you maxing out your 401k then? So you can just pay more taxes at the end of the, it makes sense. So you start thinking about it. It's like, no, I suspect we're going to get higher taxes as we move forward. Don't you guys? I mean, I don't think they're going to be less. So
They're not going down.
no, I don't feel like they're going down longer term. There may have been a blip here, but I don't feel like they're going down. So
There's going to be some accounting work to be done. If you do get a blue sweep, better convert all your 401k over to Roth and
I've seen that, yeah.
a lot of other things like that. But I don't see the sustainability. And again, you said it. You're just going to rob Peter and pay Paul, but you never tax yourself into prosperity by taking from those that have and giving to those who don't. To quote Winston Churchill, I just don't see how we can. It's not sustainable. I mean, look at all the countries around the world that have tried socialism and it hasn't worked. And we're going to go through our own experiment. We didn't learn anything from the history books. I guess history books are being revised anyway, but I just don't know how we can sustain more taxes. I mean, hell, we've just added $10 trillion to our national debt with COVID. There's no way we're ever going to pay this money back. Let's be real. I mean, the only way you're going to do it is inflate your way out of it, and paper inflation is an absolute bear at some point. We don't have the fortitude and the stomach to save and pay down our debt. That's never going to happen. Not in our lifetimes. So we either get to a point where the government owns more debt, more of their debt than anyone else does, and once they own over 50% of it, like Japan does, they have the ability to go in and do a tax jubilee. And I don't know how we end up going down the road and how the world ends up but at some point it's not sustainable, and we either inflate our way out of it with paper inflation, which is just a nightmare with the Wilmar Republic or the Zimbabwe kind of situation, or we do some sort of debt forgiveness. And they did that back in 1803. The Brits did. I don't know how we get from point A to point B, but A, the debt isn't sustainable, but B, it's not. How do you resolve it? And that's going to be a few election cycles down the road, but at some point we will have to pay attention to that. Is
that your favorite trade, Dandy? Gold shotgun and canned goods?
Yeah, pretty much. I live in Mormon country out in Idaho, and I'm right now building my closet. Tom, you'd be proud of me. I'm building my Mormon closet, so I'll have that year of sustainability and putting in propane systems throughout the house to be off the grid if need be. And I hope those things are never necessary, but you'd be foolish not, or I'd feel foolish not to be prepared in the event.
Yeah, you've got enough artillery out there, you and Willis, and I got enough friends with enough artillery. I think I'm gonna be okay.
We'll be okay with that, right? Yeah.
I would tell you, I ordered a 15,000 rounds of ammunition the other day, and it was enough to trigger a call from the ATF.
Huh.
Why I ordered 15,000 rounds of it. And to your point, Andy, I hope I never have to use it, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. It was an interesting phone call.
I can't tell you how many from the report. I get all kinds of calls and emails like, hey, you and your wife and kids ever need a place? We got some guns that'll fit in your hand real nice. Just come on out here. It's like, holy shit. Too funny. So
I would tell you the last two places, and I know there's other places, but Southeast Idaho and Western Kansas would be the last two of the last places I would, if I would come, if I were wanting to put social unrest in or do something. Probably Montana would be up there with it, but between southern Idaho and western Kansas, we've got more guns than some small countries do. So,
Hey, Greg, Andy riled up the troops up there in Idaho over the 4th of July, didn't you, Andy? Tell him.
Oh, which story are we referring to,
When you
Kevin?
went on your little march, when you did your own parade.
Oh, well, yeah, we, both the towns in nearby, Victor and Driggs, had canceled their parades because of COVID. So we decided to have our own little mini parade, and we had, one of my friends has a 1951 old Army truck, on the back of which he has mounted a 50 caliber machine gun.
Oh.
And you know, just like most parades in the U.S., they're done with tanks and those kinds of, obviously no bullets in them. But we you know, adorned the trucks with different flags of independent spirit. And we did our little tour around, and, you know, we had very few. We ended up with started with 6 cars in our parade, and we ended up with about 60.
Really?
And oh yeah, it was kind of fun. And then the cops came and stopped me and said, "Hey, I've had a lot of calls concerned about that 30 cal on the back of the truck." I said, "30 cal, give me a break. It's 50." And he just gives me the high five sign and says, "All right, go on."
That's
So
awesome.
I agree, the West is the best in terms of that kind of patriotic enthusiasm. But you know, and God forbid if we ever lost the Electoral College, because, you know, that's the whole purpose of it, is that you can't have decisions made in population bases that aren't reflective of the geographic positions of its citizenry. And you know, I think the 4 founding fathers were very fortuitous in that thinking, and hopefully that wouldn't get shut down as well. But a sweep by the blue, anything could happen, and that's why I just don't know how. When you say, what's next? What are we going to invest in? You know, I don't have a clue. I know that in a blue sweep, you can make the argument that all the money that's going to be thrown at it and just the continual printing of presses will keep everything rosy for a period of time. But at some point, you know, you got to, you know, pay the reaper. And I'm getting closer and closer to exiting all my equity positions. I don't know how you deal with the election, you know, a global shutdown that we haven't even been able to, you know, realize the consequence of, industries that won't be coming back. You know, it'll be 2-3 years before we have a global vaccine that's stabbed 6 billion, 7 billion people in the arm, or in whatever form it takes. And I just don't know, you know, until then, you know, how you're going to get the hospitality industry back, how you're going to get a lot of different aspects of our economy back up and going. And, you know, I think they're just black swans everywhere. I mean, they're more common than ducks these days. And I think it's time, from a personal equity investment perspective, to be on the sidelines. And I'm not smart enough to know what's next, but I know in the next 30 days, we're going to see volatility the likes of which we haven't seen before.
You guys got any favorite trades or favorite positions or any investments you're looking at? Or Tom, Greg?
I just told you mine. I'm buying guns.
That's been a good one. You know, hey. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree with what Andy says. I don't plan to, and I'm probably more cautious than most, but I don't plan to have a equity position on in front of that election.
Yeah.
I'm just not.
you know,
So-
I'm thinking, I'm just so pro-market, have almost never been out of the market. I've never been really strong on timing the market, but I believe the market works over time on the right things. And for the first time ever, you know, I'm like you, Andy, thinking, you know, maybe the sidelines for a period here is a really good place to be for 6 months. And if I miss a big wave, I miss a big wave. But, you know, so I don't know, Kevin. I don't see the good ones.
It's called being old bears, young bulls.
I knew that was coming,
You
Danny. I knew it was coming. Bull bears and young bulls.
Old bears and young bulls. That's the story that I'm behind these days.
That
I
is
always
your-
said when we were young, when we were trading in Chicago, we were young, I could never get my head around all the old guys that were all bearish. You know, they were way smarter than I ever thought to be, and they'd forgot more than I had known. And they were always bearish. So it's like, you know, if you're a bull, you're a cheerleader. I mean, you're a young guy, and you see all the optimism and everything. As we get older, it's like we just don't understand a lot of it. So I'm going to stay long. I've had a great windfall through this with the Tesla play, and then my biggest position now has been PayPal, and Square's been big for us. But you know, I just on the PayPal side, PayPal owns Venmo, and this has just forced so many people to go paperless transactions on the monetary side. You know, they probably develop and build a moat like no other with PayPal and Venmo. It's what it feels like to me. I mean, this Venmo thing's nuts. Everybody, I bought an Airstream over the break, a Big Daddy one, you know, the old one that everyone kind of likes those crap. I sent the cash. I had a pile of cash, and I sent it down with Todd down to Oklahoma to pick it up from this guy. This guy says, "Hey, I don't want the cash. Can you Venmo me the money?" I'm like, "No, excuse me?" He's like, "No, cash is just a pain in the ass because I bank." You know, he just banks virtually. And cash was he was have to take cash, get a cashier's check, somehow to then, you know, fax in the cashier's check. He's like, "No, you just Venmo to me and shoot it right in my bank." So I told Todd, wheel the cash back home, bring the cash back. I got to Venmo this guy now. So when that guy said that, I told Jordan and the rest of the family, I said, I've been slow to get on this party with Venmo, but I said, I'm doing it. And I saw Square the other day. We had some Square, and they bought 50 million in Bitcoin they bought, and they're buying supposedly another big tranche of Bitcoin. And I don't know. It just feels like that paperless transaction thing on money is just it's forced everyone's hand. You know, it's forced a lot of hands on things, and I don't know. So I probably am you know, but I trade too. So I'm not a long-term investor, so I'm trading, but I'll probably liquidate the day they announce they've got a vaccine. You know, that's probably when I may move to the sideline for a little bit, just because buy the rumor, sell the fact type of play. It feels like I'm with Andy. How you know, all this forgiveness and forbearance. Yeah, everything's fine right now, but shit. I mean, Michelle and I are driving around, and I'm telling you right now, I've seen a lot of businesses going out of business. A lot of vacancies, more than we've ever seen. Through the 08, 09, 010, yes, residentially, we were buying some residential things, but there was not near the vacancy you're seeing on buildings. I mean, just even through Kansas City, and I know we've not been impacted hardly at all, like some of these bigger towns and cities. I mean, there's vacancies everywhere on buildings. I'm getting calls all over the place from banks like, "Hey, you're interested in this? You're interested in this?" Oh, shit. I think just like Andy'd say, count 10 Mississippi, and in 6 months, 7 months, we get a vaccine and we get past forbearance and forgiveness. And some of these lenders start playing a little hardball. I think there's going to be some issues. And I'm with you guys. I don't know if the stock market, you can continue to see growth in quarterly earnings like we have seen. And that may be a little bit of a setback right there. So, yeah.
It's not just quarterly earnings, it's multiples. I mean,
I hear you.
Multiples are off the charts. I mean, you could keep earnings status quo and you drop, 5 or 6 or 7 times on these multiples, and you just whacked 30% off the stock market before you blink. And but we're the only game in town right now, and all these ETFs are all going with the the Robin Hoods and the FANGs, and these stocks are valued. There's not even a value equation that you can use to say, does this make sense?
Right.
I don't know.
The thing that I've really had to make myself recognize as I've gotten older is that we have a lot more money chasing a lot fewer stocks. And you have to tell yourself this though, as these companies get old and start to die, they fall off the market. I mean, the S&P 500 just kicks them out and they just fall away and wither away. So we could be absolutely right in saying there's going to be a lot of companies die and go shits up here, but there's going to be, those companies are just going to disappear into the wind, and all of a sudden you're going to have a Zoom, a PayPal, Square, all these other companies blow up, and just here the market keeps going higher. And we're sitting there like, how can this be possible? Well, how it's possible is because we're old and we're focused on the things going out of business that we know and understand. We're going to watch GE go into shitter, GM, Ford, and we're like, man, the market must be really bad. No, they're just sending those guys over to the glue factory, and the new people are being added to the S&P 500, and here we take off, and we're sitting here scratching our head like, how'd that happen? So I have to remind myself, they don't count the burials here. We don't, there's no counts on that. So I think that's interesting to see it play out. So,
well, Kevin, most of your good investments have come from advice you've gotten from your kids. So
for
what are they?
100% in the last 6 years, 7 years. Once the kids went off to college, that college thing paid dividends. I mean, I paid out a lot, but shit, I would just ask them, what are the kids saying? What are the kids saying? And that's how, that's how we got in early with any of them. Facebook, PayPal, Venmo. I mean, all these different ones.
What are they doing now?
Well, my daughter, I mean, shit, her account probably did better than it. She was long Adobe. She was long Zoom, Spotify. Spotify blew up. I mean, Jordan hit a home run with Peloton and the different ones he's been in. Oh, DraftKings. Jordan got me in DraftKings, and the other one with Barstool Sports. Penn. Penn and DraftKings just blew up in the last 6 months for us. And I was like, why am I buying this Penn stock again? He's like, no, Dad, these Barstool Sports people have gone nuts, and people just love them. And they're talking. I'm just like, I don't even get it. He's like, don't worry about it. Just buy it. And it was nuts. But he tells me his friends are all doing, like you said, on Robinhood and all this other things. And I'm just like, what are they interested in and buying? And that's really where I've just piggybacked off of what they've been saying. And that's what I said. Every one of those kids, all they do is circulate money through that Venmo app all day long. One guy paying for this, one guy doing that. Jordan says they go out to bars, and he knows a lot of the bartenders. And, we used to own bars. And so I used to say, a good bartender only steals 10 or 20% of your money. I mean, those were the good ones. It was like, but then I thought, well, everyone's going to start paying with debit cards. And so that would cut down on that a lot, right? Well, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Kennedy says, yeah, Jordan hooked me up. He knows all the bartenders down at, different bars where he goes. He's like, yeah, he just Venmos them on the side, and they hook him up with drinks all night. And I'm like, what? So that's what I'm saying. The kids are just Venmoing each other all over the place and doing these different electronic transactions. Like, hell, we don't have a chance.
Well, let's talk about something we kind of understand a little better. In my way of looking at things, we got a little bright optimism in the ag markets and prices. Greg, what do you see in terms of your outlook for markets going forward, and a little bit of a tighter supply here in soybeans, and certainly the hope that we see some foreign demand out of China? But I think the last S&D gave us a little bit of hope, and obviously we need some South American weather to mature it and marinate it just right. But how are you seeing things, and what's CBG's thoughts on that?
So we've seen such a market recovery right now that it's just been incredible, and was interesting to me. We were kind of talking down on the trade floor the other day. How did all this demand come out of China and no one really saw it coming? Right? The forecasters weren't saying, in July, hey, the hog thing is done in China and they're going to come in with a voracious appetite. You weren't hearing any of that. But man, when they came strong, right? I think I looked last night, we're paying about 11 over for beans in St. Louis for nearby delivery, and 10 over on corn. So we're in the middle of October, and we're paying double-digit overs, on the basis. So, but I think it's on the cash side, it's going to be a short-term thing, right? Because we know Brazil's a little bit late with their planting; it's dry. So we were thinking that the party's going to be over in January. Now we're thinking that our demand is going to stretch out into Feb, March. So the basis should stay pretty strong. Gulf capacity is pretty full. So there's just no room to sell more to China, but we can sell more in JFM. So I think the basis is going to stay strong out there in those months until the capacity is filled up. So it's a great opportunities, and farmers should not miss it. And I would tell farmers, you know, and what we're kind of saying is, look, don't put it on a basis contract, you know, because I could see them put it on a basis contract and think they're 1050 futures, and this thing's going to go to 1150. So typical farmers, more often than not, they don't know how to price the futures, and they wait. So they're going to sell a great basis number, 11 over, and then they're going to price futures at around 925. Right? I see it over and over and over. So a basis contract for a trader is awesome. For a farmer, it's terrible. On flat price, Andy, you know, I really don't know. This thing has run so hard. The funds have been leaning in it pretty strong. I just don't know how much more it can go. You know, because the shock factor, the momentum, I think, has already come into the market. And now we're trying to say, okay, look at spreads. Things are really tight. What the spreads say is, you know, you need to ship inventory and not hold anything. So I'm probably not real bullish long-term in terms of, I don't see it going to $12 beans. I don't see us going to $5 corn. But I'm not negative either. I mean, I don't think this thing's going to go back to 875 beans and 3 1/4 corn. So I don't know. I'm more excited about the cash market recently, and futures. I think it's if you're a producer, I think it's a gift. And, you know, we bought a lot of grain in the last 60 days. I mean, a lot of grain. And the biggest thing we hear from the farmers is like, oh, I sold too early. Right? And they're so disappointed, where it's like, no, you need to be selling all the way up, you know? So I think they're doing a better job normally than what they do. Now, what would make me a little bullish is I think they've sold a lot of grain, and now they're thinking, man, you know, I gave up $1. If I had only waited, I'm going to be patient. Got my cash needs net. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to hold out. So maybe that causes the market to have to come for more grain.
Are they replacing any of that with calls just to, you know, you have a lot more confidence if you sell your flat price and replace it with a call or a minimum price contract? Are you doing a lot of that, those kinds of contracts now?
You know, we are. So I don't know in terms of our farmer origination base. I think last year about 14% of our origination had some kind of a structure around it. And I think we're probably pushing 20% right now. So farmers are doing more of those things. And I think those things are really wise things for a farmer to do. Because you see a run up like this, you just hate to see a farmer do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, you're at pretty good profitability levels on beans, and I don't care who you are, you're at least close, if not positive, on corn. So we haven't had those opportunities much in the past year and a half. So when you get there, you better have something sold. At least you can play against it and trade around it.
Right.
Yeah. Tom, how about you? What are you seeing out there?
Historically high basis levels.
Mm-hmm.
We're bidding 60, 65 over for corn.
Wow.
And still not buying any. Out here, the checks that the government put out the last 6 months, I'm not saying it's healed the farmer, the producer, but it's given him some liquidity. And every time the phone rings, the basis is up 3 or 4 cents. And our yields, and I'm speaking as Western Kansas and part of Nebraska, are slightly down. So we're seeing some strong strong basis, especially off the combine. The other thing that I think from the southern plains that is having a big impact is the amount of sorghum that's going to China. You know, usually we have a couple 100 million, 250 million bushels of that we can use domestically, scattered between Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Texas. Personally, I sold sorghum the other day for January at 115 over, picked up at my bins.
Wow.
And so you're seeing very, very, very high levels. The bearish part of me is this inverse, and I'm going to talk renewables. This inverse is so huge that if it doesn't continue to roll forward, there will be another set of plants that will shut down after the first of the year. Because those margins, EBITDA margins just go terrible. But so far, that inverse has rolled, and I mean, it's month to month, has rolled forward with it. But that's got me a little scared. And that's not just Southern Plains. There may be pockets out there where there's ethanol plants that are making a little bit of money in the spot, but there is nobody that I think can make any money going out more than 30 days with it. So that would be, you know, kind of what I'm seeing there. But I've not seen basis levels like this. Soybeans, you know, same thing. Usually our typical basis out here would be 60 under, and I would not offer 30, 20 or 30 under if I didn't want to sell. And of course our market is Wichita. So it's a bull market. I just don't know how long it'll last. Maybe when the money runs out, but I don't think you can underestimate, at least in our part of the woods. I don't know about up in the Midwest, the impact that these checks have had, because they have thrown some liquidity out there that other years they've not had.
You know, one thing for the long-term outlook for agriculture, you know, this thing with China, trade war, African swine fever kind of took the eye off the ball of what was really going on in China. But now that they're back, now we're starting to kind of talk to people that are actually in the market, the Wilmars and different crushers in China. And if you just look at the export number of import number of what China's going to take in this year, and then kind of use USDA's numbers of what that annual growth should look like. They've got China going up to importing up to 130 million metric tons, around 109, 110 this year, in the year, 10 years, so 2031. But some of our projections are that could go up to 150 million metric tons of soybean imports into China in only 10 years. I mean, that's strong demand over time here. Now, yeah, we're going to see a lot of price volatility in there, but farmers and American agriculture, we ought to be encouraged by that number.
I think that's kind of what we've been arguing, is that we may transition to a more demand-driven market here. You know, we've just been in an oversupplied market these last 3 to 5 years, and so I think we do transition to more of a demand-driven market, and it's going to bring a lot of volatility and a lot of price swings. But I think with that, Greg, like you're saying, there'll be a lot of opportunity. So, Andy, you bullish right now? You long anything, or you on the sideline?
I'm still long some beans. I haven't been long corn yet, or I was, but I got out long before it was popular. You know, look, the Dalian at 970 a bushel. I mean, come on, that's just insanity. But you know, I mean, to your point, Greg, we've been talking about you know, China coming in as a big corn importer since what, 1995, and
Yeah.
you know, projected to take 10, 20, 30 million tons, and we went just the opposite direction. But now they're working through their reserves, and you can see it. The writing's on the wall. It sure appears. So you know, you got record funds, long record quantities of soybeans. You know, it just seems like all the kiddies are paddling on the same side of the canoe, but you know, and it really, it boils down to South America weather. If with a 290 carry out in beans, I don't see how you can be short with stolen money. I like the demand side of the story, and I am long some beans. I wish I was long corn. I just haven't had the courage to buy it just yet, but I'm hoping there'll be an opportunity, and at some point, you know, we'll break just because we got to, you know, right the ship, and the funds got to get, you know, they can't just continue perpetually to add to longs. When you're at record longs, there's a reason for that. But I think that generally speaking, I think we are in a demand cycle, Kevin, as you said, and Greg, as you insinuated as well. And to me, that's optimistic. And I don't look for $12 beans either. I'd rather buy them back around 10, but who wouldn't? You know, trading in the rearview mirror is always the easiest thing to do. There's clarity. But I want to be prepared to buy. I'd rather be a buyer than a seller looking for a break. I'd rather be a buyer on a break.
Yeah, I think, you know, I agree. I was long beans. I had some good positions in beans. Blew out of them the day of the report on the rally. I got lucky. I think the sub 300 number spooked me a little bit. And I know people will be like, well, that was bullish, but it just spooked me in the fact I just don't know where the bulls. I think the bulls are going to have to pause for a few minutes and look around, and they're going to have to wait on South American weather. And that may just, you know, some of the weaker bulls may exit a little bit here. And that's why I'm just saying, in a typical demand-driven market, we'll probably pull back. I feel like we'll ease back. It's all Chinese demand and South American weather at this point. I don't think the USDA is going to go lower with the U.S. balance sheet anytime soon. I was hoping they were going to stay around 370, 360. Then the bulls could sit here and say, well, U.S. yield may be a little bit lower. Exports, I was hoping they didn't bump exports plus 75 million. I was hoping they would just go 50, because then we could sit here and argue that's, you know, going to be raised. I just think a lot of those bullish wild cards got flipped over in the last report. Now it's all South American weather and Chinese demand. I think those may take a little while to play out. Some bulls might get bored, you know, and with the record length on the fund side, that's why I would like to try and get sold out of all of our soybeans before year end, hold more cash corn back. I think cash corn may have a better shot in the first quarter is all. I mean, I'm about 55% sold, so I have quite a bit of corn already priced and sold. I just think the first quarter may provide a little bit better window of opportunity if the bean planting in Brazil gets pushed back, if second crop corn runs into some problems in Brazil, China keeps buying. You know, maybe we could push 420, 440, but it might not happen maybe till first quarter. You know, that's all I'm saying. So it's like, you know, we're pretty toppy up, you know, maybe 390, 410. I said we slosh around between 460 and 410 in corn for the next, 90 days maybe. I'll be a buyer on the break, obviously, and same with beans. I mean, you know, I think we slosh around there for a while. I'd love for us to push $11 before year end. I'd love to get sold out of beans. It'd be the earliest I've ever been sold out of beans in the last 10 years, probably. But I'd like to get sold out, I think, earlier on the beans and then focus on the corn. So it's my 2 cents. Yeah. So, well, hell, taking way more time, Andy, than we thought for everyone. And probably wrap it up, let everybody get back to doing their thing. But I appreciate it. Tom, Greg, Andy, of course, Todd, Adam. Thank you, guys.
Good deal.
The reason we're doing it, Greg, because I'm not sure Kansas City's going to let us do FarmCon in January. So we thought we'd have these calls with everybody that participates at FarmCon, randomly have them with Andy and our friends. And we appreciate your guys' you know, participation in FarmCon and Conestogas and CGBs. And I know Andy and his friends will all be there if and when we have it. So we're kind of just.
What are the odds right now on it? When do you get to call the ball on it?
Well, they let me off the hook on the deposit and everything. So they just kind of said, just let us know. And I guess it depends a lot on Kansas City's regulations. It seems like Jordan was saying Kansas City got a little stricter the last couple of weeks on, kind of their mask thing and how many people they're going to allow in different places. So it isn't real strict, but 1,000 people, yeah, they're kind of frowning on that one. So,
And I think from our perspective, Kevin, I think, what we're going to look at is, do I really want to send 20 people
yeah,
to a room of 1,000?
yeah.
When that's kind of where things go around a lot. So.
Right. And that's what Compeer told me last week. Compeer's up in Canada. They're not even allowing people to come. And they said, we probably won't allow people to come down there until the spring anyway. So if that, it just depends. So it's like, I guess we'll just play her by ear and see how we go here. So hopefully we can have some more conversations. And like I said, I appreciate it. Everybody stay safe. Andy, hopefully see you when you return. You're going hunting, aren't you, here in a little bit?
I am actually. I'm going to be hitching a ride with Tom. He doesn't know it yet. Back to Liberal on October 31st after we work on our restaurant, and then I'm going to be driving from there back to Chicago, and I'm going to stop in and share the election with you, Kevin, if there's a room available or if I can stay somewhere nearby.
Exactly. Sounds good. So hope to see everyone. Yeah. Tom, Steve, Greg, thanks again, guys.
All right. See y'all.
All right. See you. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.